I don't want to go too far into this because I want to get some expert opinion and gather some more, but I saw that the Missouri open enrollment bill would allow Missouri kids to enroll in neighboring school districts. So the bill, sponsored by Representative Bill Pullett, a Republican from Sedalia, described his proposal as a minor proposal compared to what others want to do. He goes on to say the status quo says the bill goes too far. The reform says it doesn't go far enough. A nearly identical bill passed the House in an 85-68 vote last year, just 3 more than a constitutional majority of the chamber. It's new to legislation this year, and its creation of an online portal is the new part that would track the number of students who had applied to enroll in sistering school districts. So this would allow for a kid living in the Osage School District that his parents want him to go to Camdenton and pay that out of district tuition. That tuition would go away, and with limitation and rules, there would be the allowance to go to another school district, even if you live within the district of another. And so I think there's initially on the surface, Chris, there's pros and there's cons of this, right? I could see, well, this is great, right? Maybe your actual and closer proximity to Camdenton, but where your Lake Road sits, you live in the Versailles School District. So those things, or having the choice, maybe you like a school district that maybe has more options, more funding, and that would allow you to maybe make that choice. But I see some potential problems with this, right?
Big time. If you're a college football fan, they brought in the portal that allows students to pretty much transfer at will whenever they want to, wherever they want to, and it's created chaos in college football. So much so they joke about it on the commercials, right?
Yeah. Dr. Pepper commercial.
Yeah, that's one I was thinking of. And this is kind of the same idea. It's not quite as wide open and crazy, but it's kind of the same idea. And I did talk to a couple of coaches recently about this, and they're not for it because it would create some of that chaos. And, if you get schools, sports programs, and they're recruiting kids, they might steal some away from Camdenton or Osage or Eldon and Versailles to bring them over to, some other school. And it could be a big problem. And, that's looking at it from one aspect. From another aspect, there are some positives to it. Maybe your kid, the school you're going to, it doesn't offer, some of the activities that your kid loves to do. In that sense, it would be a great thing. So just like everything else, pros and cons, and people would screw it up, try to take advantage of it and, bring the dark side out of it. But like I say, for the coaches that I have talked to, they're not too excited about this.
Yeah, and that's one of the initial cons that I see. Also, funding and having enough faculty per student. I mean, obviously the portal would indicate how many are coming in, and hopefully you would plan. I did want to say, Pollitt placed a 3% cap on the number of students who can leave a district annually under open enrollment, meaning, so if you have 100 students that year, only 3% of them would be able to leave. So once 3 leave your district, no more are eligible to leave the district, and that's interesting. He proposed a 1% cap for districts with a high number of students qualifying for free or reduced lunch, which is going to greatly affect our local school districts, meaning, hey, if you have a high poverty level, if you have a certain percentage of your students that qualify reduced or free lunch, Camdenton and Osage, Versailles, Eldon, California, Tipton, all of those districts have very high reduced and free lunch percentages, that cap would be 1%, meaning that would be even more limited here at the Lake Area School. He did remove the 1% cap upon advice from a caucus policy committee, and so I guess that wouldn't stay in. They've got some work to do with this, and I looked at this and said there's pros, there's cons, but I don't have any dog in the fight. My kids aren't in school. My daughter's not old enough to be in public school yet. She will be by the time this passes. And so I was looking at the pros and cons, but I thought we ought to talk to some experts. And so I've reached out to Dr. Sean Kirksey with the Camdenton School District, and we're going to have a conversation this week so I can share some better info with you guys on his take, as well as I spoke with Brad Yoder, who's the assistant superintendent with the District of Osage, and he mimicked a lot of the same things you said, Chris, about the coaching, that listen, you'd have schools start to kind of become basketball schools where it's like, hey, those twins or those brothers are there, so we're going to take their star player and their star player, and we're going to create a dream team and surely have a state championship run. That's already a concern by the districts that you could see. And so those cap numbers seem to be important elements here because that would maybe keep that honest or keep a handle on that.
And a part of the problem, too, in the state of Missouri is The private schools already do that. Yeah. They already go out and recruit. You know, you get your Cardinal Ritters and your Heliases and stuff like that. They can go out and try to cherry pick players from other schools to come to their private schools, and that is not fair to the public schools. The state of Missouri's tried to combat that a little bit by, you know, raising them up in the classes, even if they're a smaller school. If they're recruiting players, they're putting them up in a higher class. So it's not a perfect system for sure.
No, and we'll see it. It'll change, and it'll continually change as times move forward. But